Now, I was thinking about the raging elephants, some elephants faster than other elephants, and it reminded me of that old adage about when elephants race, the grass suffers, but when elephants make love, the grass also suffers. But I've learned that Thailand is actually an elephant, so I guess it's Laos that may have a little problem. But anyway, we have two Deputy Assistant Secretaries for Public Affairs and Public Diplomacy, and Angela Egler is representing the South and Central Asia Division in the Department of State, and Walter Douglas is representing the East Asia Division. The interesting thing is they both have had experience in the other division, and so they've crossed lines a little bit. And I think what we'll do is, not just because of alphabetical order, but because we're in South Asia, we'll start with Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morrison, and thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with you all today, and I must say I've never quite been likened to an elephant before, so I'm. Oh, okay. Okay, got it. So anyway, I appreciate the introduction very much, and it truly is an honor to be here. It's a really great pleasure also to be here with my colleague and friend Walter Douglas. I think that the fact that we're here together represents the collaboration between my bureau, the Bureau of South and Central Asia, and his bureau, East and Asia Pacific, and the collaboration that we have together, which is so important at the Department of State. I want to start, though, by expressing my genuine gratitude to all of you from the media who are here today. Journalism is an increasingly dangerous profession, as many of you know, and many journalists around the world face threats, not just to their work, but to their lives and those of their families. In my previous job as the political affairs counselor in Pakistan, I saw firsthand the tremendous work that journalists were doing in the face of great danger. So let me again express my thanks to each of you for your service and your commitment to your work. South and Central Asia presents us with great opportunities as well as some very serious challenges. So let me start, if I may, with a few data points. Close to 1/3 of the planet lives in this region, one quarter of the planet lives in this region, with 1/3 of the world's Muslims. In the coming decades, about 500 million people throughout the region could enter the middle class. Yet most of the population in this region is rural. Many hundreds live without electricity, and no other region in the world has as many poor and undernourished people as South Asia. Geographically, the Indian Ocean sea routes connect Asia with the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, and the Straits of Hormuz and Malacca are two of the world's most important strategic economic throughways. Over half of the global maritime oil trade and 40% of the world's offshore petroleum production takes place here. The countries of Central Asia share borders with China, Russia, Afghanistan, and Iran, all states where we have complex and critical foreign policy interests and are historically integral to overland trade between Asia, Europe, and the Near East. Economically, the region offers some very bright indicators, even in the midst of daunting challenges. India, the world's fastest growing large economy, is and will continue to be the engine of South Asia's growth. Bangladesh, with 2 decades of 6% growth per year, is on track to become a top 30 economy by 2030. Sri Lanka is rebalancing its own foreign and economic policies thanks to its strategic maritime location to some of the largest markets of Asia. A key factor is, of course, India. And Secretary Kerry's visit here just last week is emblematic of the strength and depth of that relationship. President Obama has called this relationship one of the truly defining partnerships of the 21st century. And in the past decade, we have seen enormous progress in our bilateral relations. By 2030, India will be the globe's most populous nation, with a rising middle class of 500 million people and a reservoir of entrepreneurial ingenuity and talent. The growth they can collectively achieve will help drive the economies of Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Addressing a joint session of the U.S. Congress this past June, Prime Minister Modi laid out the Modi Doctrine, his vision of bilateral relations that quote, overcome the hesitations of history, unquote, and embrace the convergence between our two countries and our shared interests. He put forward a bold vision of a U.S.-India partnership that can anchor peace, prosperity, and stability from Asia to Africa, from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific, and help secure commerce and freedom of navigation. Last year, our annual naval exercise with India, Malabar, also included ships from Japan's world-class Navy, and maritime security was a central focus of our inaugural U.S.-India-Japan Ministerial in New York in September 2015. And last summer, for the first time ever, Indian vessels joined the United States, China, and 20 other nations in the Rim of Pacific, or the RIMPAC exercise, the world's largest international maritime exercise. We have also seen increasing cooperation on counterterrorism, climate change, global health, peacekeeping, and more, all of which contribute to greater regional stability. Our trade relationship has grown tremendously, as has U.S. investment, and our people-to-people ties grow stronger each day, with hundreds of thousands of Indian students, tourists, and business people visiting the United States each year. Sri Lanka also deserves special attention as it continues to consolidate democratic gains and put the country on a path towards reconciliation. The United States was among the first to welcome these moves and offer our support and assistance. Both Secretary Kerry and UN Ambassador Samantha Power visited Sri Lanka last year and then again earlier this year to hold the inaugural U.S.-Sri Lanka Partnership Dialogue. Bangladesh, while facing serious security challenges, has gone from a food importer to a food exporter, lifting tens of millions out of extreme poverty and meeting several of its Millennium Development Goals, sharply reducing child mortality and improving maternal health. USAID has played an important role in these achievements, another great example of what can be accomplished with the U.S. partnership. As Secretary Kerry noted just 2 weeks ago in Dhaka, we're not sure that anyone would have predicted a decade ago that the United States and Bangladesh would be consulting so closely on regional security, that Bangladesh would be using American cutters to patrol the Bay of Bengal, and that our shared agenda would include everything from counterterrorism to environmental health and sustainability of oceans. In Nepal, we will continue to support post-earthquake reconstruction and economic development. The United States is committed to a partnership with the Nepalese people and government in order to enhance prosperity, encourage democracy, and to ensure stability. My office also covers our public engagement with Afghanistan and Pakistan, where we work very hard to support security, stability, and economic growth. The political and security transition in Afghanistan is at the forefront of many, many discussions on security and terrorism with our partners in South and Central Asia. We continuously engage with many in the region with interests in supporting economic stability and security in Afghanistan. And in Pakistan, we engage on the broadest range of bilateral issues to promote growth and stability and welcome efforts by India and Pakistan to continue their dialogue on issues of concern for both countries. The strategic significance of this region will be unparalleled in this century. But as Assistant Secretary Biswal recently asked, will it be a region of friendly cooperation and mutual benefit, or one of adversarial competition and unnecessary conflict? A region where many millions of people are lifted from poverty, or one where millions are condemned to suffer the consequences of our collective inaction? Each of the countries in this amazing region has a unique set of challenges, but also present tremendous opportunities. Above all, we share a commitment to stability, security, and economic growth that we can work to strengthen and support. We believe there is great and endless promise in the Indo-Pacific cooperation, and we will continue to work towards that with your help and collaboration. Thank you.
Walter.
Okay. Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Angela, for the kind words about the East Asia Pacific Bureau, and we feel the same way about SCA, so it's great to be up here with you. And it really is truly an honor to be up here with the East-West Center, something that it's an institution that has had such a long relationship with the East Asia Pacific Bureau and expanded out from there, and it does wonderful work, and it's just great to be up here on the podium with you, Charles.
A long relationship with the South Asia Bureau, too.
South Asia as well, yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to exclude anyone. And then let me just say it's wonderful to be back in India, seeing all sorts of friendly faces. Since I left just over a year ago, but I did notice a lot of the Indian journalists left when Foreign Secretary Jaishankar left. Curious. Let me talk to you a little bit about U.S. relations with East Asia. First of all, let me give you a framework. One thing that makes it kind of interesting is how nonpartisan our policy towards East Asia has been. After, say, the 1970s, by about 1980, there were no longer partisan divisions in the United States about what we're doing in Asia. And you see this long run of a nonpartisan policy, and it's not even bipartisan, it's just nonpartisan. There really isn't any debate about what we're going to do there. Everybody supports a growing relationship with the region, and we just saw this steady, and we've seen this steady upward climb. I would say under the Obama administration, though, it accelerated. And we certainly have many people call him the Pacific president. He certainly spent a lot of time out there. But we've seen an attention to the Pacific region, Asia-Pacific region, that has gone from going steadily climbing upwards to moving up at a slightly higher rate. And we cap it up by calling it the rebalance. And that is moving more American diplomatic, economic, military resources into the region that underscore the importance of the region to the United States. Rebalance has four basic parts, and I was just going to give you a little explanation of each one of them, just to line them up. At first, there's shared prosperity, there's shared security, there's institution building, and there's universal values. Now, what do all those mean? Shared prosperity. The economic center of gravity has really shifted to the Asia Pacific. If you look at the size of the GNPs, those that are included in the various regional organizations, it's just astounding. But Asia is not just a workshop, but more and more it's a consumer of American goods, and it's a co-inventor, innovator, and a partner. And all that has meant to an explosive growth of trade, and it's something that has benefited every nation there, the small ones, as well as a country like China, which owes a lot of its prosperity, this tremendous economic expansion we've seen in the Asia-Pacific region. Right now, our next move forward on it is TPP, which will increase labor standards, environmental standards, but most importantly, it will make it easier to move goods back and forth because there will be fewer tariff barriers between the countries. Shared security. What does that mean? Well, first let me say the U.S. takes its role as a traditional guarantor of security in the Asia-Pacific very seriously. There'll be no change in that. We are committed to going forward as we have to have that role. It starts with our friends. We've recently upgraded our treaty alliances with Japan, Korea, Australia, the Philippines. We've enhanced cooperation. We have a rotational military presence with U.S. forces in the Philippines and Australia. And these are very important because these are the foundations of our relationship there, certainly on a military front, going along with the economic shared prosperity that I just mentioned. Why do we need that? Well, we've got a couple of problems out there. North Korea is a big one. We've recently been reminded, again, through missile tests, through nuclear tests, that North Korea is going to be destabilizing, and it is going to try to do whatever it can to get ahead, including threatening its neighbors. Those treaty alliances and our cooperation with those countries, they are vital to maintaining peace in Northeast Asia. South China Sea. Another key strategic area where we're seeing coercive and unilateral approach to long-standing disputes in the region. It is different, in East China Sea, but nonetheless it is of great concern what happens there. There is an established order, there are rules for doing things, and they aren't always being followed out there. Now, despite what people will say, this is not directed at China. We do not have a Cold War with China. If you remember the Cold War, well, our relationship with China looks nothing like this. I refer you about a month ago, Susan Rice, who is one of the architects of our China policy, our East Asia policy, put a blog out in which she described the broad engagement the United States has with China. I think it's well worth your time to go look at it because you get a sense of what we do together, and there's a heck of a lot that's positive. Angela, you mentioned some things that dealing how, in South Asia, how we cooperate with India. I'd say a lot of the same things we see with China. Climate, we combat piracy in the high seas together. Humanitarian assistance, we saw it fighting Ebola in West Africa. You mentioned RIMPAC, where we have the Chinese participating in our largest Pacific maritime exercise. Military exercise. We have regular visits and communication between our top military officials. They go back and forth, and they meet on a regular basis. And after the 2008 crisis, economic crisis, financial crisis, we worked together to help stabilize the world. It was rather interesting, I don't know if you remember, but when President Obama was in Malaysia, a student in Waisili, the youth organization, asked him what's his most impressive accomplishment is. He said, stabilizing the world after the 2008. Very interesting. China was part of that. But this leads us to the third part third pillar of what we're doing out in our relationship with East Asia. And that is we're institution building. We are building institutions that promote a rules-based order. We think that is the most important thing we can have out there to maintain shared prosperity and shared security. More rule setting by consensus means less rule breaking unilaterally. It means less military action, including as we saw by the United States over 50 years ago in that region, because you don't need it if everybody follows the rules. Why is the United States recognized for its stabilizing role there? Because we play by the rules. And the countries of Asia and the Pacific recognize that's how we do it. And it gives us a tremendous respect. It gives us a certain willingness to other countries to work with us. We are working to help regional institutions like ASEAN become stronger. We have appointed, under the Obama administration, our first ambassador to ASEAN. We have a U.S.-ASEAN summit that the President attends. And we spend a lot of our time and effort working with the ASEAN countries, helping them become stronger. One program we're the most proud of is something called Waisili, the Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative, which brings together the young professionals from the 10 countries of ASEAN with American counterparts. And it helps them form an idea that they are a unit that yes, of course, they're individual countries, but they also have shared values, have a shared destiny, and that together they're stronger than if they're apart. Something we're very proud of and we support wholeheartedly. As you saw in Laos, President Obama met with him for his final time in the region, and he really considers it as one of his great accomplishments. He said he's continue working with them after he leaves office, but it's something that won't be just for President Obama. It's really for the U.S. government to continue working with Waisili, this absolutely fantastic program. Generally, we've supported, though, back to our institution building, the 18 countries that come together in the East Asia Summit. We think that is an absolutely important forum for everything we do. And when rules are made, as they were on July 12th, with the arbitral tribunal decision, we support that decision 100%. And as you all know, that is the decision between Philippines and China over the South China Sea. Brings me to the fourth part of that, of our relationship, universal values. When democracy and human rights prevail, U.S. finds itself, we have better friends. We see the extraordinary turn of events in Burma. Really, I think has amazed so many people, but I'm proud to say that my country we're always working to try to help bring about a democratic transition there. It's not complete, it's still going forward, but it's certainly heading in the right direction. As you know, Aung San Suu Kyi will be coming to Washington next week. She will meet with the president and a raft of other people in Washington and not just government, but others, to talk about what she's doing with Burma. And we're all very, very eager to listen. And we're willing to offer support to what the Burmese think they need. America stands by. When the president was in Vietnam, We had a great trip when he was there in May, but notice he did not shy from talking about human rights there. And as this expanding relationship goes with Vietnam, we also, be sure to say, as part of this friendship, we do look at human rights. We push back when we see Chinese human rights violations. And with North Korea, when we see what what the North Korean government is doing to its people, we constantly bring it up. The UN and other institutions remind the people of what's happening there. These rights and democracy are vitally important to us, and they really are the fourth part of what we do in East Asia Pacific region. Finally, we are in India. And let me say, one of the great changes we've seen over the past few years is the growing Indian interest in the East Asia Pacific region. We welcome it. We see more institutional ties. We see India getting more involved. We think it could be a real contributor to the region. And we look forward to more involvement. We're involved with some formal regional groupings with them. We'd like to see them in more. But we think at any rate that India can play a very vital role out there. And in every way, we welcome its involvement in the East Asia Pacific region. And the fact that I'm here today, coming back to my beloved New Delhi, is part of the case why we think it's really important that when there's a meeting here in New Delhi of all you journalists from all over, that East Asia Pacific region is represented, and that brings me here. So let me wrap up and say I'm delighted to be here, and I hope I've given you a pretty comprehensive view, or short, but of how we see the East Asia Pacific region and America's commitment to it, and a commitment that will not go away, but will stay firm and everlasting. Thank you.
Okay, they've been very succinct, and so we actually have a lot of time for discussion. I don't want to really encourage any of you, but I think if you have to get a lubricant, tea or coffee, you can walk out and pick it up and bring it in. But what I'd like to do now is open it for discussion, but I'd like both of our panelists to think about the press. They're in jobs where they work with the press all the time. And I somehow have a feeling that every once in a while they get a little bit frustrated. So I'd like you to think about, from your point of view, what you think of the press in this region, and is there anything you would like to see changed? But let's open it up now for questions or very brief comments. Again, no speeches, please. Somebody got a...
Thank you. I'm Mir from Afghanistan. I work with 2 news channels. United States have election ahead, so what's the expectation? Would be there any change in policy regarding these countries? They are still supporting radicalism and terrorists in the region in South Asia, like there was an attack on American university, and they are affecting our joint projects, institutions, and so on. Thanks.
Okay, so that's a question about Afghanistan, but I think maybe we should expand that to Central Asia, since we haven't talked about the other countries in Central Asia, and we've just witnessed the death of a longtime leader in Uzbekistan. So would you like to answer that?
Because it wasn't hard enough at first. So yeah, thanks. Thank you for your question, and thank you also for your service in Afghanistan. We have seen over the last number of months a series of attacks in Afghanistan, including on your colleagues from Tolo News several months ago. And this is a place where what I referred to earlier, the danger of simply doing your job, is very, very real. Afghanistan, and you have seen in recent months with the president's announcement of maintaining troop levels in Afghanistan, that our presence there is a priority. Afghanistan plays a very important strategic role in the region, and it's one in which we have seen, for example, the government of India showing support to Afghanistan as well. And I think that those across the South and Central Asian region recognize the importance of continuing to provide support. It's a very difficult situation, but we have also seen through the Warsaw Conference in June, and we will see again at UNGA and then the donor conference in Brussels coming up, there is an international commitment to continuing to support Afghanistan in these very challenging times. The situation in Central Asia, and thank you for raising this actually, Dr. Morrison, because I think sometimes it's very easy for those of us looking at our different regions, whether in the State Department or other institutions, to tend to think of the world as stopping at the boundaries of our particular region. And Central Asia faces a number of challenges, including from the western side with the former Soviet Union states, and also with the flow of some of the challenges that we have seen with terrorism and other aspects of within Afghanistan and Pakistan. These are issues with which we think about and strategize and discuss with the leaders of not only Afghanistan but also Central Asia. This is a very interesting time in Central Asia, as we've seen the death of President Karimov. There seems to be a transition of power now with the announcement that the Prime Minister will be taking over. It's an interesting time, though, for those states, and there are a lot of people here who know far more about it than I, but it is a time where, and I actually just came from Central Asia, where there was a great deal of discussion about the transition of power. It has been peaceful, and we are watching very closely, and it appears that it will be so. But I think there are those around the region that are also watching very closely to see how this plays out. And as it is in the South and Central Asian region almost every day, these are interesting times, but we're watching them very closely.
Okay, yes. Here. I think the microphone's the other way. Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Song Yuhang from Caixin Globus from China, and I want to ask, what do you think of the nuclear tests of North Asia several days ago, and what do you expect China to do? This first question. A second question is, what do you expect to collaborate with China in the South, in the Central Asia? Thank you. Central Asia, yes.
So I think both of you can answer.
We have a split one here. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, the North Korean tests were obviously very troubling.
Yes, sorry, the nuclear test is today. Sorry.
Yeah, just overnight.
What?
The nuclear test.
Yeah, yeah. Once again, I haven't seen a statement come out of Washington yet, and we will have the official statement, but I'm very sure it's condemning that and seeing it as leading to regional instability. And the most important thing is those countries that can have any diplomatic leverage with North Korea should use it to try to stop something like that. There are UN sanctions are on because there are certain standards that are expected of North Korea, and therefore the countries of the United Nations should support those very much, especially the Security Council members.
And in terms of resources with China, it's a great question. And again, there are a number of shared interests, shared resources, shared different concerns between Central Asia and China. We certainly see that in terms of energy resources, water, climate, and these sorts of things. There is a lot of work that focuses towards enhancing trade throughout the region as we look at whether it's the One Belt, One Road idea, the Silk Road, New Silk Road idea. So there's a number of issues that are under discussion continuously. And, as Walter described very well, China is a partner in these things, and we hope to see that they are able to build partnerships to enhance economic growth and stability within Central Asia as well.
Walter, India has been saying for the last few weeks that Pakistani state is sponsoring terrorism. A few minutes ago, Indian Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar said that state actors and non-state actors is a false dichotomy. So what do you think about that? What is the US stand? You think Pakistan state is in a way sponsoring terrorism? I know your stated position, but what do you think about it?
That's not quite my portfolio anymore, so I will pass it to my SCA colleague.
I almost had it there. I think that one of the most, something that I liked very much that Foreign Secretary Jay Shankar said was that terrorism can no longer be seen as a national problem. And I think that's a really important thing to consider. The United States has been very clear about what we have discussed with Pakistan and what we have asked. But I think one of the most important bottom lines here is what Secretary Kerry said just last week when he was here. There are no good terrorists. There are no bad terrorists, there are terrorists. And we will continue to work with all of our partners in the region to address the threat of terrorism. We have seen, even as our colleague asked the question about Bangladesh, this is a regional issue. It expands beyond the region. It's a global scourge, and it is something with which we are keenly aware and working every day to combat terrorism, period, wherever it might stem from.
I'm Nirendra Maski. I'm the East-West Center Alumni Chapter Leader from Kathmandu. And I have a comment about things happening in Nepal. Especially I'm referring to the reconstruction work that has been being done in Nepal. And it's almost 1.5 years past with that dramatic earthquake that we had and its aftershocks. But to date, I really, as a geologist, I have not seen anything whatsoever done to redress the pain of the people in the mountains. Set aside the mountains, but even in Kathmandu Valley, you see all the dilapidated and almost falling houses, and nothing has been done. And it's a very, very dangerous for people to walk by. And this state of things, I think it's, I blame it on bad governance, non-transparency, and I put it really corruption. And I would like the international community, especially the United States, at least to hammer out the problem and get it down, let them get off their backs and start working. I think it's not on the right track, and I don't see that this reconstruction work is going to go ahead even in the times to come. So this is a serious business. There's a lot of politics behind it. But aside from politics, I'm a simple man, and I would like to see justice done in Nepal. What's your comment?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think what we'll do is go on to another couple.
I'm Sumitra from Jamia Millia Islamia. Mr. Douglas, you mentioned that the United States is pushing against human rights violations in China and North Korea. I would like to know what the United States is doing about human rights violation in India, especially in Kashmir and the northeastern states. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Sanjay. My question is related to Indo-Afghanistan and this implication in South Asia. The question is, India has been doing this civil agreement with Afghanistan, civilian involvement mostly so far. Now, a new trajectory is evolving. India is getting involved militarily also by supplying military equipments and other hardwares. And India, in a way, now is, of course, playing America's game in South Asia. The implication, my question is this, that what's implication you see in terms of stability in Afghanistan, if India gets involved too deeply militarily there in the Hindu Kush, do you think that Pakistan will take it lying down? Or you cannot isolate Pakistan in any kind of a solution in Afghanistan.
Thank you for that. You know, what we're going to do now is ask the panelists if they would like to comment on any of these questions, and then you have a question afterwards, and you over there, okay?
First of all, on Nepal, sir, I couldn't agree with you more that there's far more that needs to be done. It's a very, very serious issue. I was in Nepal recently. In fact, our U.S. ambassador to Nepal is here now. She was here a little earlier this morning and I think has gone on to meetings. The United States has worked very hard with partners in Kathmandu and outside of the capital to work on some reconstruction, whether it's with cultural preservation for some of the many treasures, but it's an enormous job. There's a new government in Nepal, and we will continue to work very closely to support, along with many, many international donors, the work that goes on there. In terms of human rights in Kashmir, we're keenly aware of what has happened, and that is a conversation that we have regularly with the governments of India and with Pakistan. The Secretary certainly discussed that when he was here. And so that is something that we watch very closely. But as we have said, and as the Secretary has said, that is something that India and Pakistan need to address. Finally, on the question about India and Afghanistan, sir, your comment on will India now be playing America's game? This is not a game. And we don't see it as a game. The commitments and the decisions that India has made are India's alone. We welcome their support of a neighbor because, again, regional stability is in the interest of India as much as it is in the interest of the United States. So we will continue to provide what support we can. And I think the global community that's engaged in Afghanistan appreciates greatly the efforts that India is also making to help stabilize Afghanistan.
Over. Anything you'd like to add?
Anything to add?
I'm not having to add.
Okay.
This is Jayashree Jetwani from IMC. The area of terrorism and coverage by media has been an area of my learning, right from 9/11 till now. So information is oxygen for the media, and media works as oxygen for the terrorist groups. Terrorist groups employ least of resources to bring devastation. Bad news is good news is no news. And you find that they get a lot of coverage from all over the media, probably that is the DNA of media. So what is your advice to media houses, media people? That someone of those terrorist organizations, they are having the last laugh. So what is that would you like to advise as, diplomats, as America?
Okay. And then behind, yes.
My name is Jagannath Chattopadhyay. I work for Anand Bazar Putrika. Again, like Ashish, I would refer Mr. Joysankar, one of the Joysankar's comment. He wanted support, international support for to uphold that secularism and pluralism in Bangladesh. I would like to know from you that what is the U.S. take in engaging Hasina government? Because there are resentment in Bangladesh in terms of U.S. role in supporting this Dhaka establishment. And secondly, I have another question.
I'm sorry, in supporting what?
In supporting Hasina government. And secondly, what is your stand in the recent execution of the war criminals by the Hasina government?
Hello, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Mang, I'm from Burma. And thank you for mentioning the US engagement in Burma transition. And in last 2 weeks ago, Burma rejected its agenda on discussion U.S. sanction against Burma, but it's hand over to the governments and pass bill on foreign direct investment law. So, and you also mentioned that Suu Kyi is going to visit the United States soon. So do you see any release of potential sanction against Burma? And then, do you think that Burma transition is ready to accommodate U.S. investment or release of sanction? Thank you.
Walter, why don't you handle that last question, and then we'll turn to Angela again. Investment. I thought, future of investment.
Thank you. Yeah, on Burma. As you know, there are certain sanctions against Burma right now, and some of those restrict investments. I think everything is under review, and I think it really will help to have discussions when Aung San Suu Kyi is in Washington, and so we can look at everything that we think will help promote the Burma developing in the right way towards a more democratic country. So I can't give you specifics, but I can certainly say we're looking at these, discussions are underway, and I think we'll be having a lot more discussions next week.
Do you want to say anything about the question about journalism?
Oh, sure. Journalism and terrorism. It's kind of a broad question, and I'm not one to really tell journalists how to do their job, since we believe strongly in the First Amendment and freedom of press. And so the only thing I can say is whenever you're covering something, just do so responsibly. And that means covering the victims, but not sensationalizing what happens, because sometimes that can feed more terrorism. But these are news stories. They have to be covered. That's what the media should do. And so all I can say is use your judgment to provide that proper balance.
And to add to your point, information is the oxygen of media. I think you said the term. And I think that's very important. And as Walter said, part of this is the responsibility of journalists and how they are also filling the information space. We as governments certainly engage, and we have colleagues here from our media hub in London who work very closely with our embassies around this region to support positive messages that we are putting out there about democracy, tolerance, freedom, access to information, and these sorts of things. You never win the fight of countering a negative message. That does not seem to be effective. And instead, I think we provide an alternative and hopefully positive message, but there is a very important role for media to play here, as Walter said, and we urge and hope you all will do so. On the question of Bangladesh, the United States has partnerships with governments around this region and around the world. And that is neither a sign of approval or disapproval. It's simply how diplomacy works. And again, the Secretary was just there, and I think you all certainly understand that not everything that is said publicly mirrors precisely what is said privately. And there are many conversations that are had in private with leaders of countries around this region and Walter's region that aren't necessarily included at the press conference at the end. So I can assure you that the issue of human rights and in fact, and you refer to Mir Qasim Ali's execution, I believe, one of the issues that we have called for very loudly, both publicly and have reinforced in private, is the need for the judicial process to be free, fair, and transparent. And we will continue to do so. It is tremendously important that that be in place. And so those are the messages we will continue to convey.
Thank you for that. Now, ma'am, you had a question, and then the person just in front. Yep. We'll take two more. They'll be very short. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good day, everyone. I am Dandy Macarambon of the Philippine Broadcasting Service, Radyo ng Bayan, that's People's Radio in the Philippines. Yes, this has something to do with the recent controversial statement of our hardworking president, President Rodrigo Duterte, and many of my colleagues in this conference, they've been asking me about this. What did your president say that? And it's like this and like that. And now I'd like to raise this question to you, sir and madam. What is the take on this of the United States of America? We Filipinos do believe that the president did not mean to be antagonistic to President Obama. So, and that led also to the cancellation, rather postponement of the meeting of President Duterte and President Obama. What do you have to say about it, sir?
Okay. There's one question from Africa, so I want to take that for sure.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a chance. My name is Mario Jimmy. I'm from the South Sudan in Africa. Thank you to also have the two guests. My question is just simple to America. In our country currently, there's a lot of fighting going on. And the government said, American government is supporting our rebel. What can you say about that? Thank you.
Maybe that's out of their jurisdiction, but we'll see. Okay, Walter, last word from you.
Okay, sure. If I could mention on your question about your country, I think you're going to have to go to the Africa Bureau, which will have more answers. That's not our area of expertise, and we're busy enough in our own regions without looking at Africa.
But I would also add that the Secretary was just there in Africa and discussing these things, so it is certainly of importance. They would have better answers for you, though.
On the Philippines, I think I'm going to step back for a minute, and rather than talk about the personalities involved here right now, is to look at the long-term relationship between the Philippines and the United States. We are treaty allies. We've had a great relationship. We've worked so closely together on so many things. And regardless of who's in power, the important thing is that the United States and the Philippines stay close. It's hard to imagine something would change that. So whatever was said, not said, let that be worked out. But it all works in the framework of a very strong relationship between the United States and the Philippines. Thank you.
Angela, anything? No. You know, I just want to end by complimenting not just our speakers, but complimenting the audience too. I thought you asked some really good, tough questions, and I think our speakers answered them all. So I'm very pleased with this session. Thank you very much.